My name's Gareth. I am the Associate Director heading up the Cyber Command Department at KHIPU Networks, and I'm here today to talk to you about SOC Outcomes 2024 year in review. Our Cyber Command Department is it's the team that runs our SOC service. Basically, it's the DevOps department, it's the red team, and the blue team, and together those three sub departments is our SOC service, which we call Cyber Command. To move on quickly. As the leader of Cyber Command, I get to, luckily, I get to work closely with our customers and with members of our team on some of our most complicated and sophisticated incidents. Looking over the data from 2024, we can see that speed matters. Speed still matters. The time between initial compromise and data exfiltration is decreasing. Attackers are sometimes able to exfiltrate data within hours and not anymore. So it is very, very important that we are actively monitoring behaviors, IOCs, BIOCs, constantly monitoring those things, have playbooks in the back end ready and waiting for things to happen. We can also see that software vulnerabilities were behind some of the large attack campaigns in 2024. They lead the list of ways that attackers get in, right? So if there are many ways that attackers can get in, and still, if we had an event like this sort of 5 years ago, I'm pretty sure we'd be talking about speed and vulnerability, software vulnerabilities, and so on. But the fact is that in 2024 and moving into 2025, software vulnerabilities is still a massive issue and one of the most popular ways for attackers to get in. The threat actors themselves are becoming a lot more sophisticated. They are organized, they are specialized. Sometimes they've got separate teams that focus on different parts of an attack. So they might have one team that is focused on initial access, another team that may be focused on persistence, another team focused on lateral movement, and so we go through the attack life cycle. But the fact is that the attackers, they are working together, they are using automation. So therefore, so do we need to do the same thing to keep up. We had a look through some Unit 42 stats, which is the threat response team from Palo Alto Networks, which shows that a threat actor group called Model Libre is by far the most damaging threat actor group in recent times. They actively target SaaS applications and cloud service providers with the goal to exfiltrate sensitive data. They leverage sophisticated social engineering techniques to gain initial access. So yes, 2024 and going into 2025 still, social engineering is still a big problem area. How do threat actors get in? Focused on a review of 2024, right? So in the past year, attackers' initial access most often started again with a software vulnerability, using previously stolen credentials. Phishing or otherwise, and although phishing lost the top spot, but dropped to number 3, but it's still a very, very serious threat to any industry. Who is being targeted? So again, some stats from Unit 42 shows that 63% of all incidents that were actively investigated by Palo Alto's threat response team came from those 6 verticals: so legal and professional, high technology, manufacturing, healthcare, finance, and wholesale and retail. To moving away from global cybersecurity stats, a little bit more into specifically KHIPU SOC related stats. I don't know if you can see there the drastic difference compared to what we're receiving in as an outsourced SOC service provider compared to, from 2020. In 2024 compared to 2023, right? So total events received there, you can see 280 billion, around 280 billion, which went up to 137 trillion, which is a massive increase of 389%. So obviously you might think, that sort of defeats the whole point. The purpose is to reduce alerts. The fact is that as our customers mature, as we gain more customers, as the service matures, and as we mature the service, as our customers' technology sets mature, as our customers introduce new technologies, so do these events increase, right? The technologies, the security technologies that we implement within our environments love generating and sending alerts. That old adage of alert fatigue is still very, very prevalent in 2024 and on to 2025. The KHIPU SOC, or any SOC, but in this case, the KHIPU SOC, our goal, and is to go from 137 trillion events down to 650 investigations. So how do we do that? Again, it's our customers' security tool sets. Their existing investment into those tool sets that are generating alerts, whether that's a firewall, Office 365, DHCP, multi-factor authentication tool sets, EDR, XDR technologies, whatever it may be. These technologies are generating those alerts and sending that through to the KHIPU SOC, to our log repositories, to our SIEM solutions, to our XDR solutions. Out of the 137 trillion events generated, there was only 5 million alerts generated. What does that mean? It means that we rely on technology, we rely on AI and machine learning within the technology sets to help reduce that noise. So we can't rely on a human to go over 137 trillion events, right? So if we do have an in-house SOC service, I don't know how many humans we're going to need to do that. So what happens is, naturally what happens is that we investigate hundreds of alerts and ignore the rest, right? So total alerts generated was up from 540,000 to about 5 million in 2024. And you can see the next step down is from 5 million to 924,000. So from alerts generated to incidents raised, right? So our customer security tool sets sending security events into technology. The technology is having a look at those events and then creating incidents based on those events, right? And those alerts. So I've seen alerts within, or incidents, I should say, within some technology sets of one incident, but there's 2,000 or 3,000 alerts associated to that incident. Now, if we have to rely on a human to go and look at 2,000 alerts to say, oh, that's related to a certain server or a certain person or a certain group of people or a certain attack vector, a certain IOC or BIOC, and do that 2,000 or 3,000 times, that's going to take a long time, right? So we rely on automation and technology to do that for us. Once an incident is raised, sometimes, or a lot of the time, as you can see there, we're jumping down from 924,000 to 22,000 tickets generated. Is that sometimes, a lot of the time, is that those incidents are automatically mitigated. Maybe it's a benign artifact. Maybe an artifact, a URL, a domain, a file hash or something has gone up to threat intel and it's come back within about 30 seconds as benign, right? Do we need to raise a ticket for that? Do we need to phone a customer at 3 in the morning if something is benign? Do we need to phone a customer at 3 in the morning to tell them that their firewall blocked a malicious domain? So the firewall is doing exactly what the firewall should be doing? No. So you can see there a massive drop from 924K to 22K, but then another big drop from 22K to 13,000, or to just about 13,000 actual investigations that were done, which means about 9,000 of those tickets generated were automatically mitigated or auto-closed or were just informational, right? So what we're doing as a KHIPU SOC is we're handling those, we're responsible for those alerts and removing all of that noise from our customers' view. Further investigations is really something that has gone up to threat intel and that has come back as unknown or malicious, actual investigations that were done. Not all of those 650 were active breaches that we needed to mitigate, but they were definitely investigations that that needed to be done. A few more stats you can see here, and maybe to sort of carry on with what Dumi was saying about automation, is that this is the last half of 2024 at least, where almost a petabyte of data from our customer security tool sets have been ingested into the KHIPU SOC. 2,460,000 playbook runs, 1,270,000 XDR actions, and just over 57,000 SIEM actions, right? So without the technology sets doing these things, whatever those actions are, whether they're blocking a process, stopping a process, correlating 1,000 alerts into an incident, whatever the action is, without the technology sets doing that, without having playbooks there running 24/7, automatically triggerable playbooks, I must say, without these processes and technologies in place, I'm not too sure that we'd be able to provide a SOC service at the cost point that we can, right? Because we're going to have to rely on humans to take care of all these actions. Very, very important part over there. Dumi did mention a few words about processes being fully automated and some processes being semi-automated. And a lot of our customers, most customers, and I would be as well, if I was an end user, be a little bit nervous about automation. So what happens in reality with our customer base, at least, is that our customers get more and more comfortable with process automation as time goes by. And that's where that semi-automation comes in. So if a customer is not 100% comfortable with a playbook, isolating a host might be an important server, isolating a device, an endpoint, maybe an important person's endpoint or whatever it may be. We can affect semi-automation to when we recommend with the customer that we isolate the host, for example, and the customer clicks yes or no within an email to say, yes, I want to isolate the host. And then as time goes by, as our customers and ourselves get used to each other, used to processes, so and so do we start fully automating these processes. Again, just very, very important that without automation, without the AI and the machine learning and all that these technology sets do, we wouldn't be able to provide an outsourced SOC service. Major incident trend from 2024, and I can tell you right now, it's carrying on into 2025, is identity-based threats, specifically for KHIPU customers at least. Identity-based threats is a very, very prevalent attack vector within our customer base. An example of that, I'd like to go over an example, right? This is an incident that was experienced with a customer, not a SOC customer. So the service that was leveraged here was the KHIPU incident response service. And the summary there is missing virtual machines, right? So what we can see here is what happened. So KHIPU were contacted to assist as infrastructure was unavailable and VMs missing. What we found was students had permission to access engineering or access production environments at least. A student connected via RDP to a production server. A student then performed a network scan, identified vulnerabilities using publicly available scripts and tools, GitHub and so on, dark web, things like that. Credentials, a credential dump was performed, and ultimately 30 or so virtual machines were deleted. Yeah. We were able to identify this for a customer within an hour of the first initial call that we had with the customer, the day after the customer identified these issues. And the reason we're able to be so quick is that we've got those processes in place to be able to deploy certain technology for customers that don't have that type of technology in the midst of an incident response. You can see here the timeline, and it's a lot of data there, but I just want to draw your attention to the number one over here, where the student logs into the server. From there, all the way until the VMs were deleted, took just under 2 hours, right? So things happen quick nowadays. Yes, we do still get remnants of malware activity and malicious activity that lies dormant for weeks and months and so on. But for the most part, when the threat actors have got access, when they can do things, and they do it then, and they do it now, and they do it quickly. So KHIPU was actually contacted the next morning at 10 o'clock, about an hour after the customer realized that something was going wrong. An hour after the meeting at 10 o'clock, technology was deployed on this site. The impact to this customer, right? Flat network, not good nowadays. We need network segmentation to avoid that lateral movement. We identified a flat network or a flat subset of the network at least. Unpatched vulnerabilities, right? In this case, was quite under, right? This case to be a disgruntled student in this case. And if it was a real threat actor, because of the prevalence of the software vulnerabilities and the flat network and so on, and how the network's configured and architected, is that if it was a threat actor, they could have done a lot more damage. In this case, the VMs were deleted, and that seems to be it. So the outcome of that was customer downtime. They needed to restore. Luckily, this customer had malware-free backup solution as well, so that didn't take too long, a couple of days. And it was recommended that remote exposed to the internet or to remote access software, which is very, very sort of popular and prevalent within higher education environments at least. So what did we do? We reviewed the logs. First of all, we deployed technology. We reviewed logs. We were able to identify and determine students' activity, how they gained access, when they gained access, what they gained access to. Were there any other user accounts implicated in this case? No. We suggested locking the students' accounts and changing passwords, right? We were extremely positive that students performed delete action only. No exfiltration of data occurred, right? We're looking at firewall traffic logs. We're looking at DLP, security telemetry that's coming in, VPN, Prisma type stuff and so on. We're looking at that type of technology to make sure that no exfiltration happened. Recommended the removal of that remote access software, and once investigation had concluded, the customer was given the go ahead to start the restoration process. So and that was at that time we were able to sort of close that case and to mitigate that incident for this specific customer. And with that, I'd like to say thank you, and over to you, Chloe. I'm not too sure if there's any questions.
Thank you, Gareth.
Pleasure.
Yes, I can see there's one question, which is, how did factors like remote work and digital transformation affect the outcomes in 2024?
Yeah, okay. So, well, so remote attack surface, basically, right? So we've gone from, having an office-based environment where we've got servers there and there's no, back in the day, obviously, no cloud, everything was on-prem and we had databases and all of our critical and sensitive data was kept on site, and we had firewalls and there were hardware firewalls based on site, so internet gateway firewalls and so on. Nowadays, with remote working, our attack surface is all over the place, right? So we've got and with the expansion of the attack surface, right, that's the main goal. Any cybersecurity strategy, part of the main goal is to reduce your attack surface. What remote working has done is it's expanded that, made it a lot more complicated. We're getting logs from all over the place, right? An endpoint, a Windows endpoint, from a staff member or a colleague sitting at home, right? Maybe multiple endpoints, right? Because we're able to access corporate data sometimes from BYD devices as well. So what that's done, increased attack surface, has increased our the alert volume, as you can see there, from 2023 to 2024, right? A massive increase in our alerts, 389%, I think I said. And what that does is it just makes everything more complex, right? We need to be available 24/7. We need to understand our customers' environments. We need the visibility. We need to know our attack surface, no matter how big or small that attack surface is. So you also mentioned cloud adoption, right? So again, it's increasing our attack surface and adding to the complexity there. Logs are not centralized anymore. A part of our SOC service, comes built in with log management, and that log management tool is receiving logs from all over the place, right? So it's not just from an office anymore. So yeah, that's what I would say is that's what I would say remote working is caused us to do. So thank you very much.
That's okay. Thank you very much. I hope that answered your question.